You could go with a third-party printer. There are several very good ones, as well as some scam artists, so you have to be aware of that in self-publishing. And you can often pay for that done, for what you need done, and then do the rest on your own or have other people do it. It's a great option for someone who speaks at conferences or has a reputation, and so they already know that they can get books out to a lot of people. I'm finding it really interesting that people who already have a platform, who have been traditionally published, are often self-publishing their later works or their previous works that they've gotten the rights back to in order to make more money off of them. You have to have a platform in order to make money off of it, but it's a great option. You do have to pay money. And that leads me to independent publishing. It is not the same as self-publishing. It is not the same as traditional. However, if you go with an independent publishing company, you are getting all the benefits as with a traditional publishing company, just on a smaller scale. Those are often niche markets where a company publishes books just about dogs or just about recipes on Mexican food. Niche markets, usually, but not always. And that is a great choice for someone who doesn't want to pay any money, who wants someone else to do all of the work for them other than the edits that they have to do and the writing. Although you can hire a writer to do that for you too, if you really want. Ghostwriting is popular. It is. And it's a great choice for someone who's breaking into the market and that's how they want to be published. The biggest thing to know is that whatever way you decide to publish, and I encourage you all to try a variety of different publishing methods, whichever way you choose, you know all of your choices up front and you know what all of your responsibilities are. You know how much it's going to cost, if anything, and you need to read over all that legalese, run it past your friends and your family, and really understand what's involved before you sign any dotted line, because it's a big commitment. And so, what was my decision? I still didn't make one. I had this beautiful grid. I was more confused than ever because what I'd been being told was not at all what I found to be facts. So I took an even bigger step back and I said, well, what have I been doing with my life up until now? I had been a computer engineer, and I found that my years as a computer engineer, they were the most rewarding when I was working for startup companies. I really liked the go-to of startup companies. And in fact, when my oldest was really small, we needed extra money and I wanted something more to do. And I started a website design and photography business. And I found that really rewarding. And later, before I was deep into writing, I had a homeschooling consulting company where I was helping people learn how to homeschool, like many of you do. And I found those experiences really rewarding. And I also spent that time reading a whole bunch of business books. I love business books. My favorite one, this title is based off of, The Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And what I really gleaned out of that is that the rich, they don't do everything themselves. All this time I've been thinking I had to do it all myself. But the rich people, they are constantly asking for advice and asking for help. They know that even if they are supposedly smart, that there are millions of other smarter people in the world out there on something else. And so they're constantly looking for help. I've been doing it all on my own. And I love the idea of asking for help and not having to do everything all myself. So what option did I choose? Well, as I said, when my daughters were little, I was writing a lot. By the time Zoe was 7 and Tegan was 3, I'd already written about 6 or so women's fiction books. novels that I've actually since done nothing with, but that's okay. And one day, I was playing in the pool with my daughters, and my daughter, who was 7, she had, at that point, she had already been reading books by the time she was 3. So by age 7, she was reading 2 or 3 books a day. And so I was constantly asking for advice from other people. What books can I give her? What books can I give her? I asked librarians, my homeschooling friends, everyone. I had this big list for her, always checking out books. And I asked her, so Zoe, how are you liking the books you've been reading lately? And she said, they're horrible, Mom. I don't know why you keep giving me these horrible books. I'm like, horrible? What do you mean? What's so horrible about them? She said, it's easy. They're horrible. They're just horrible. Well, what specifically? What specifically makes them horrible? Well, I don't need to tell you just one thing. There are 3 reasons why these books are horrible. For starters, I asked you to get me some books about homeschoolers, fiction books. And so you bring me Little House, that's written 100 years ago. I don't exactly relate to the Little House characters. Fine book, but I don't relate to them at all. And furthermore, all these other books you keep giving me, while there aren't any homeschooling characters, the kids are either in school, complaining about it constantly, or they're outside of school talking about school, complaining about it constantly. And I don't understand why these writers even got published if all they're having their kids do is complain about school all the time. Is school really that horrible? Well, yeah, Zoe, it kind of is. What else do you not like about these specific books? Well, the second thing is that the brothers and the sisters, they are constantly making fun of each other. And it is driving me nuts. The older sisters will call the little brothers stupid head all the time, and the little brothers will constantly, put things in the sister's bed and pull on their hair and do all these really mean things. And it's just driving me nuts because, after all, I love Tegan, and all my friends love their brothers and sisters too. And maybe we don't always get along, but I wouldn't do those things. That's a good point. Have you not read any books that have siblings who like each other in them? And what else do you not like about the books you're reading? No, I haven't read any other books with good characters. And the last thing should be obvious. All books for kids my age, they're all just like Disney movies. The parents, they're either dead or they're absent. Just completely abandon their children. I don't understand why some adult who's in charge can't come in and help these kids. Instead, they're left to be alone. And I just don't get it. That I'm sorry, Zoe. I mean, these are award-winning books that librarians are recommending for everybody your age. What would you do if you could fix it? She said, Mom, you're a writer. Can't you write the perfect children's chapter book series? My daughter was a genius. I don't know why I hadn't thought of it before. Well, I knew she was a genius. And so, for the next 6 months, we went on, as a family, long walks every day, and we hung out in a pool every day that we could. And we just devoted that entire 6 months to figuring out what is the perfect children's chapter book series. Based on my kids' input and the input of all of our other homeschooling friends, we decided that it had a variety of elements. For starters, it had to have homeschoolers in it. And not old-fashioned homeschoolers, but homeschoolers of today, realistic ones. Ones in all different aspects of homeschooling. Because as we know, there's not just one stereotypical homeschooler, but 1,000 different kinds. Since we are unschoolers, we decided we'd write one with an unschooling family. We also wanted it to have at least 2 kids, and we stuck with 2 because that's what our family is. An older sister and a little brother, even though I have 2 girls. We thought that'd be more fun. Has a mom and a dad who are there nearly all the time. time in support of their family adventures, and we sent them on an adventure of a lifetime. We put them in an RV so that they could travel all around the United States, and we would do one book for each of the 50 US states. We threw in a pet turtle and a bit of science fiction, and we felt we had the perfect children's chapter book series. In record time, I wrote the first 6 manuscripts for that. More excited than ever, I started pitching them all over the place. I was sending out 20 query letters a day. I loved this series. I believed in this series. This series had a market, and an untapped market. And my family was so excited about it. And the funniest thing is, brings me back to 2009, rejection letter after rejection letter, pouring in, pouring in. Except for they weren't just, no thank you, but they were, Lisa, your writing style is really great. You have a lot of potential. Perhaps you could write something different in the future, and we would be very interested in seeing it and possibly publishing it. After I received about 20 or so of these, I thought, okay, what am I missing? And I started sending back letters, or started making phone calls, and started talking to these editors and agents. And I asked them, what is it about this series? What could I do to make it so you could publish it? They said lots of things, but pretty much the same advice was the same conversation. They basically said to me, Lisa, your writing is great, but you need to change 3 things. For starters, you have to get rid of the parents. Children today, you probably don't know this, and maybe you don't have kids, but you don't realize that children can't learn when their parents are around. It's not possible. So you need to, in the adventures, you need to get rid of the parents. Children can't learn real life lessons if their parent is there. Okay, I was very hesitant to hear this, but they're the experts, so I would listen. Can you tell me what the other 2 things are? Well, you need to make the siblings not like each other, because in real life, siblings don't like each other. They're constantly bickering. Now, if you could get the older sister to start calling the little brother names all the time, then we're getting closer. And if you could have the little brother maybe cut off his sister's pigtails and stick a frog in her bed and just constantly annoy her so that she's like, to the point of wanting to hit him. Got to do that in at least every chapter. Then if you can do that, then maybe we can talk. At this point I don't know. What is the 3rd bit of advice? Homeschooling, you gotta get rid of the homeschooling. Homeschooling is out of date, old-fashioned, no one really does it, and it's just not something anyone is interested in reading about. That made me excited because I had statistics. Thank you for bringing that up, I said. In my query letter, I mentioned that in my research, I found that there are over 2.2 million homeschooling families in the United States alone. Exactly. That's not a market. I was baffled. What do I do with that information? I was frustrated. I was banging my head against a brick wall. So I decided to jump over that wall, to take my experience, my research, and do something completely different. During those years, I'd also spent a lot of time giving pitches to venture capitalists for various startup companies. So I'd done that, I knew how to give a good pitch, and I decided in March of 2009 to pitch to venture capitalists to start my own publishing company. Grandiose plans of getting hundreds of thousands of dollars. In April of 2009, I actually very quickly received some money. I received enough money to publish 2 books in my Right on Time series of children's chapter books. My goals were big. The first was to prove that I had the ability to learn how to become an independent publisher on my own, not something I'd ever done for a living before. My second was to pay back that initial investor who gave me way less than I wanted, but way more than I had. And so to pay them back and become self-sustaining. And the third was to take all the proceeds from those first 2 books and roll them into more books, because at that point I was just mad. Mad at the publishing world. How dare they say there's no market for 2.2 million homeschoolers who have no books, fiction books about children like them. How dare they say that? So what I wanted to do is I want to publish thousands of books. And every single one of those books is going to have a homeschooler in them. Every single one of them. Different kinds of homeschooling, all kinds of homeschooling, but homeschooling is going to be prominent. And guess what? They're always going to have at least one parent hanging around, and the siblings are going to like each other. They might not always get along, but they will like each other. And that was my goal. And I started Do Life Right, Inc., publishing company, in 2009. And today, we have 11 books. I did things a little backwards than most independent publishing companies, but I like doing things a little backwards. Most people, when they decide to start a publishing company of their own, they are an editor, or they know marketing. They know something like that, but I knew writing, and I already had 6 manuscripts. And so I took my own writing and decided, since I'm an unknown, I'm going to gamble with my own writing first. And so that's what I did. And today, we have the first 4 books in the Right on Time series with Nadia and Aiden. The first takes them to Arizona, where they learn about caves and minerals. The second takes them to Utah, where they go on a dinosaur dig. And this brings up a good point. In my research for these books, my family and I have traveled to 40 different states. And because I have a company, our trips are tax deductible, because they are research. And we do these things, all except for the science fiction aspect, of which my daughters keep asking me if we can please do, and hopefully we can someday. But in the third, they go to Wyoming, where they see various alternative energies. And in the fourth, they go to South Dakota, where they do the obvious things, like Mount Rushmore, but they also go to the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, and they learn how newspapers are made. The 5th book in this series, set in Minnesota, comes out next month, or well, it's August already, later this month, and it takes them to various sculpture gardens around the state. This book, Right on Time Collection 1, just came out last week, and it is a collection of the first 4 books all in one. It was requested by many people, and so I did it. We also have our first picture book, which I swore I would never publish a picture book because that's really hard. This picture book was inspired by me, actually. I had the idea, and this author sent me a query letter for a completely different book. But based off of how wonderful I loved her query letter, I went back to her a couple months later and I said, I'd love to do that book, but not yet. Instead, could you do this book? Because there is no other book like this that exists. And it's a book about the family bed. And there is no other book like it. We also have one young adult novel, which features 2 homeschoolers. And I'm looking for more YA, if any of you. I'm really, really looking for more YA and an adult novel with homeschooling as a theme. if anyone here has written one, which brings up our